All right, today we're diving into something that's been making waves online, a really controversial framework called the marriage wheel.
So let me ask you something. Do you think there's a predictable, almost cyclical pattern to modern marriage? A path that most relationships seem to follow from that amazing first spark to, well, to the end, whatever that might look like. It's something a lot of us have probably wondered about.
Well, according to one online coach, the answer is a big, flashing yes. He's actually developed a framework that he says maps out this exact cycle. But, and this is a key point, it's specifically from a man's point of view. And you can bet it's kicked up a ton of debate.
Okay, so let's get into what this thing actually is. It's called the marriage wheel. It was created by a guy named Coach Greg Adams, and he presents it as a satirical framework. Now, the whole point of it is to lay out what he believes are the typical psychological and, financial stages a man goes through in a modern marriage. It's basically meant to be a warning sign, highlighting what he sees as some major potential risks.
So, you're probably wondering, how does this wheel actually work? Let's break down the 8 stages, one by one, so we can really get the logic he's putting forward.
Okay, stage 1 kicks off with love bombing or idealization. We all know this one, right? It's that honeymoon phase, just intense romance, great connection, everyone's on their best behavior. Then you hit stage 2, compliance or cooperation. This is that early harmony phase where, the model says, the man starts really prioritizing the woman's needs to show he's committed. That naturally leads to stage 3, where demands and expectations increase. The focus shifts from just fun and romance to things like long-term stability, security, and eventually marriage. And that brings us to the big one, stage 4, contract signing, aka getting married. Adam says this is the absolute game changer. The moment it becomes a legal agreement, he argues, the whole power dynamic just shifts.
All right, now we're on the other side of the wheel. Stage 5 is comfort and complacency. The daily grind, the routines, the responsibilities, they start to take over, pushing that early romance to the side. The model then says this slides right into stage 6, control and complaints. This is where one partner starts trying to direct the other's behavior, and, no surprise, arguments start to really pick up. Next up is stage 7, ultimatums and withdrawal. Intimacy starts to fade, maybe it even becomes a bargaining chip, and you might start hearing threats about leaving. And finally, the wheel comes full circle to stage 8, breakdown and divorce filing. This is where the legal system gets involved to handle everything, assets, custody, the whole shebang.
So yeah, it's a pretty bleak picture, isn't it? A very cynical progression. But that's just the what. The real question is why. I mean, why would someone create a model that's this provocative? Let's dig into the creator's core message to find out.
So here's the argument at the heart of it all. According to Coach Greg Adams, modern marriage has basically become a state-controlled contract. And his whole point is that this contract is set up in a way that financially disadvantages men, while giving women, in his view, legal incentives to leave the relationship.
So this whole wheel isn't just meant to be a critique, right? It's designed to be a tool, a way to encourage guys to take certain actions. Things like vetting your partner really carefully, really understanding the divorce laws in your area, focusing on your own financial freedom, and trying to avoid what he calls codependent thinking. The idea is to do all of this before you even think about signing that marriage contract.
Okay, so as you can probably guess, a framework this pointed doesn't just exist on its own. It's caused a huge amount of debate. So to really get the full picture, we have to look at 2 things, where it came from and all the major criticisms that have been thrown at it.
And man, the debate is pretty intense. You've got 2 very different camps here. On one side, you have the supporters. They'll argue that this model, cynical as it is, really does reflect what's happening with modern divorce stats, with trends in family court, and frankly, with the personal lived experiences of a lot of men. But on the other side, you have the critics, and they say, no way. This is a harmful oversimplification. Their argument is that it paints all women with an unfairly broad brush, gives this incredibly pessimistic view of relationships, and completely ignores the fact that millions of people are in happy, healthy marriages. They say it just cherry-picks the absolute worst-case scenarios.
And it's also super important to understand the context of where this all came from. The marriage wheel didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It came from online communities that are often called the manosphere. Websites, forums, all focused on masculinity and men's issues, along with men's self-improvement spaces. When you know that, it helps you understand why this message resonates so strongly with certain groups and the specific anxieties it's really trying to speak to.
So, we've walked through the stages, the reasoning, the controversy. What's the big takeaway?
At the end of the day, the marriage wheel is a very modern, very online framework. It's an attempt to explain this huge, complex thing, marriage, through one very specific and, yeah, very critical lens.
And really, whether you look at this thing and think it's a valuable warning or just a harmful generalization, the fact that it exists at all points to something bigger, don't you think? We live in an age of online advice, where literally anyone can create and share a model for how to live. And what we're seeing are all these frameworks popping up that are designed to speak to very specific fears and anxieties. So maybe the real challenge for us isn't to decide if a model like this is right or wrong. Maybe it's about understanding the worldview it's selling, and more importantly, thinking about the huge, vast spectrum of human experience that it just might be leaving out. Definitely something to chew on.